and are getting squared.
The spice extends life. The spice expands consciousness. The spice is vital to space travel.
Wow, it's been a summer for movies. Interesting the way they're treating the genre, though. Have you seen The Expendables? All these aging action heroes all in one movie. Really interesting. Good humor. Lots of shooting, though. If you like that kind of stuff, it's very cool. New Zealand has had an earthquake. You've heard about it in the news, but you don't really know how bad it is. The earthquake has ripped a new fault line across the world. Yeah, across the planet, moving one side of the earth 11 feet to the right. That's right. New Zealand earthquake rips a new fault line 11 feet to the right. The earthquake that devastated a city in New Zealand tore open a new 11-foot fault line in the Earth's surface. The 7.1 magnitude quake, which hit the city Christchurch, the country's second largest city, destroyed about 500 buildings and caused an estimated 930 million pounds of damage. That's about $2 million. About $2 billion. New Zealand earthquake had a lot of energy in it, to be sure, and it was caused by a continuing collision between the Pacific and Australian tectonic plates, so they say. If you believe in plate tectonic theory, said Professor Mark Quigley of Canterbury University. He says, one side of the earth has lurched to the right, up to 11 feet, and some places been thrust up, he said. We went and saw two houses that were completely snapped in half by the earthquake. Prime Minister John Key said it was a miracle no one was killed. He put that down to the building codes, and because the quake happened just before dawn on Saturday. The fact that no one was killed was put down to the timing of the quake and strict building codes. New Zealand has very good building codes, which means the buildings are strong compared with, say, Haiti, said Professor Martha Savage of Victoria University in the capital, Wellington. If this had happened 5 hours earlier or 5 hours later, there would have been absolute carnage in terms of human life. Parts of the city look like they've been put in the tumble dryer. Up to 90 extra police officers had flown into Christchurch to help, and troops were likely to join the recovery effort today. Engineering teams have begun assessing damage to all central areas. Schools across the region will remain closed for the next 2 days to allow time to check whether they're safe. Pretty tough to weather a 7.1 quake, but the fact that the earth moved 11 feet to the right is quite spectacular. New Zealand records about 14,000 earthquakes a year, but only about 150 are actually felt by residents. No, they don't spend that much time in the pub. Who wrote that? No, they're just light quakes. Fewer than 10 a year do any damage. Also, we've been talking about space missions. You know, if your kids are thinking about becoming astronauts, you might want to encourage them again. It used to be a really great, aspiring career when you were kids. I remember in the 8th grade, I was helping out the 3rd graders. I think I was sort of an assistant teacher or a playground monitor or something. But it became of interest to the local newspapers, and they came and interviewed me, and they asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. I didn't hesitate. I really didn't. Here's what I said. I said, I want to be an asteroid miner. Yeah, you should have seen the look on their faces. An asteroid miner? Are you kidding me? No, I want to be an asteroid miner. They're your continent-sized block of iron or titanium or gold or nickel or some valuable thing out there. You throw a couple of chains around that rock and haul it back to our neighborhood and mine it apart. Well, guess what? That's right. Plymouth Rock. Deep space asteroid mission idea gains ground. That's the headline. Plans for sending humans to visit an asteroid are heating up, with at least one company already scoping out the technological essentials for a deep space expedition within a decade. I could still go. I'm still in good shape. The asteroid space trek is seen as both scientifically valuable and as a dress rehearsal for a Mars mission. Because the asteroids are a lot closer than Mars. NASA officials have said it could also hone ideas for planetary defense to guard Earth from a messy head-on clash with a space rock. Once we get used to wrestling one of the beggars around out there, we might gain some insight. We might learn how to use an asteroid against an asteroid, maybe, keep it out of our path, or cause sort of one to carom off the other and protect ourselves. Launching a manned asteroid mission by 2025 is NASA's new goal, set by none other than President Barack Obama, who announced a plan in April. The deep space mission would serve as a stepping stone to a crewed mission to Mars. No, not crude like base or petroleum or in bad taste. I mean crude as though you have men and women on the ship. A crew, not crude. Lockheed Martin, which has been building NASA's Orion space capsule to replace the agency's retiring shuttle fleet, has already completed a study on how an asteroid mission might work. Determining how best to dispatch a crew to an asteroid is now high on NASA's to-do list. The agency held a 2-day workshop in Washington, D.C. this month to discuss ways to explore near-Earth objects with robots and astronauts. The workshop's primary goals were to increase the collective understanding of near-Earth objects. By the way, just let me put in here parenthetically, most government telescopes are not looking for near-Earth objects, okay? They are contracted and grants have been acquired and awarded and given out, and they're booked for years to come, and they're not looking at NEOs. It's the amateurs, thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them out there with wonderful, very powerful telescopes, Schmidt-Cassegrain scopes and refractory scopes, and they're the ones that are taking the space photography using digital cameras. And by the way, if you're aspiring to do this, you can go to our friends at the Discovery Store and you can check out these telescopes. If you've ever thought about buying a telescope, you think about it, shop for it, because just shopping for it, you can go through a whole bowl of popcorn. It's really neat stuff. They've got cooled cameras now, CCD cameras that take fairly high resolution pictures, not like your camera, 10 megapixels, but they're up there, several 100,000 pixels or even a couple of megapixels. Believe me, when you're taking pictures of space, you don't need all that resolution. What you do need is you need the cumulative power of a geosynchronous satellite. Now, these are a geosynchronous telescope. These telescopes have motor drives on them that compensate for the rotation of the Earth. So once you lock on to a star, you're looking at a certain field of view, and the more power you put in your eyepiece or your ocular, the smaller section of space you can look at. What these people that are looking for NEOs do is they take overlay shots. They may, instead of the old days where you were using film and you just simply open the shutter for 4 or 5 minutes or 7 minutes and let all the light pour in onto the film, and then you go develop the film. What these do is these snap repeated digital shots over and over and over again, and they become cumulative, like a fast Fourier transform. They add one to another, to another, to another, and what happens is the images become exceedingly sharp. And images and stars that are out of view, if you were to just look through the eyepiece, will come into view because the light is additive over time. Now, the very cool thing about this is that you can take your telescope, which has been locked into a star, and set up in your nice homemade observatory in your backyard, your concrete slab. You don't want to take the telescope from inside to outside, set it up and shoot pictures, because the telescope is a different temperature than the outside, and the thermal changes in the lens and the mirrors causes an error. And so you really need to leave your telescope in the weather condition that it's going to do the viewing. So many people build an outside observatory, like a shed of some kind. They put it on a slab, put a steel pole in the ground with a nice, 1 cubic yard pylon in the ground, something to really keep that telescope steady. Now, if you go out there in the wintertime, it's best because there's less humidity in the air, the stars twinkle less, and the optics of the telescope become very stable, and so does the camera. But that also means you're going to be sitting around in a snowmobile suit looking through your telescope, or you do what most people do. You take the feed from your digital camera and you feed it inside the house to your big screen TV or to your HD computer screen, and you sit there in your pajamas with your bowl of popcorn, and you can look at the stars on your screen, and it's really stunning. Lots of things moving out there. But these people that detect NEOs, what they do is over time, 3 months, 6 months, 6 years, they overlay the photographs, and the software looks for movement, looks for things that are moving relative to everything else. That's how all the comets are found. That's how all these big asteroids are found. If they reflect enough light to show up in the film, and these amateurs are capturing them. That's why they're called Shoemaker-Levy. That's why they assume the name of the person that actually found them. And the amateurs are now beating the observatory on the South Pole, and they're beating the observatory in Hawaii, which are two of the big ones that are finding all these NEOs. So I would, if you have a crazy amount of extra money, and I mean you want to spend between $5,000 and $10,000 to really join the search for terrestrial intelligence or extraterrestrial intelligence, or search for things that are moving out there in space, Nibiru and the like. That's what you need. You can find one occasionally on eBay, but I can tell you right now, all those fellows on eBay know exactly what that telescope is worth, and you're not going to really get a good deal. Now, there are 3 different kinds of scopes. There's a refractory scope, which you're looking through lenses right out the end of the scope. And a big one is going to cost you big bucks. You can get a 3-inch or 4-inch or 5-inch. You can see all that you really want to see. Great for looking at planets. You can get a reflective one, which is where you're using a mirror, and a Schmidt-Cassegrain is very short, although you get a very long optical length because they bounce the light a couple of times in the tube, and they're easy to handle and they're easy to set up, but they're also tough on the pocketbook, and they do have the motorized drives. The cheapest telescope, and this is just if you want to haul something out on the back patio with a bunch of friends and look at the Pleiades or look at some nebula or another, then you want a Dobsonian. A Dobsonian is like a big trash can with a mirror at the bottom. You grab a handle, you swing it around. You'll use the aiming scope, put the crosshairs on what you want to find, then